Hello, beautiful souls. Namaste. Welcome. This is an ongoing discussion of the Tyldwick Tarot, a deck that I have endeavored to dive into with you. And this is not an easy deck to read by any means. I have been really taking my time with the cards, and I think this is a deck that requires a different sort of mindset. And tonight, here by candlelight, I'd like you to imagine that you are walking through this mansion, walking through this estate, holding a candle on a candle holder and looking into mirrors, looking into little nooks and crannies and um, exploring the house. And I think part of the mystery and magic of the Tyldwick is um, in its environment. So really stepping into its environment and just truly imagining that you are in this house. So I want to say welcome to Tamian. Namaste. And April, I don't know if you are here, but thank you so much for joining the channel. All right, so we're going to look at the twos. We're going to look at mirrors and how we might work with this in the deck. And if I know the lighting's not great, but I think it has a purpose. I can put a candle on the other side, but then we'll be flickering from both sides. So let's just work with this. The idea of two is such a powerful concept in the tarot. The twos we encounter in the Lovers and Justice. There's so many cards where we're asked to look at things from different angles, besides all of the minor twos, of course. And these cards are cards of reflection, where they compare sun and moon and night and day, solar. And often sometimes we're looking at solar feminine and lunar masculine as well too, and how the embracing of the opposite planet by the other planet really brings in a harmony and a balance. And it's funny, I was reading Joe's description, and he says these two obelisks on either side of this desk are not quite the same size. I'm not sure about that. I did briefly look at this card a few minutes ago with my magnifying glass, but I don't think that's so important here. What is really interesting to me is that one is not black and the other is white. They both are quite similar in appearance, and they stand as a gateway. And I think this is an important, you can get a whole list of synonyms for this: gateway, doorway, portal, opening. And the gift of this experience of separation is one that opens something up. Hi, Perry, welcome. And so it's almost like we step outside of ourselves in the two. And wouldn't that be, that is quite a high level of meditation, where you actually observe the witnessing. And I think we can look at this in so many different ways. I did a recent workshop on the practice of Tritalk, where you gaze at something and then honestly, you become the something that you're gazing at. It's a premeditation practice. I think that in all of these two cards, the idea of reflection is so very, very important. So when you look at the goddess and what, look at this, let's do this differently than we would with the High Priestess card. What is the goddess reflecting back to you? How do you feel in her reflection? I think that is more of an appropriate question. Have you had an experience where you have been in the company of a powerful goddess statuary and been in that presence? She is the gateway. She is the pathway between the divine and this dimension. But there's something that is opening up in front of her that's inviting us in. She is the moon. She is lunar, of course, all of that. And she invites this discussion of reflection. Now, there are so many timely things here to contemplate. Looking at these twos in a time of Mercury retrograde is going to amplify your insight. So when you sign off tonight, if you have these cards, or maybe even go back and watch the replay, look at them carefully and ask yourself, is that me? What is being reflected back to me, and how do I feel about that reflection? What is my energy in the presence of this image? This image is one of you, and it's shining back lunar energy. So you are stepping apart to look at the lunar energy. What about your lunar energy? Are you ready to know? Are you ready to learn? Are you ready to understand? I think she beckons you to go deeper. She beckons you to, and I want to ask many of these same questions in all of these two cards. When you set up an altar, do you put something left and right? Is one black? Is one white? Is one red? Is one blue? Is it intentional? Is one bigger and one smaller? Is one rough and one smooth? I know when I lay my beach rocks on my lefts and rights, I put the smooth black one on the feminine side and the round rough one on the right side. But sometimes I mix them up. And I think this contemplation is really important. Ideally, we are working towards a full expression of our lunar masculine and our solar feminine. And so feel her deeply in your heart. She is ferocious. Whether this is Isis, whether you see this, because vision with this deck is not, you're not always focusing on the details of the deck. You may see from a distance like a black Madonna. There may be other feminine, other goddesses that shine through when you look at this card. And so allow that to shine through. You may see a black version of Kali. Now, she probably wouldn't show up in a lunar card, but yeah, she is feminine though. I just had this message. I think she's on a clock. She's on a clock because the clock is about, I think the clock, and you see, okay, so here's something. If she is on a clock and clock is time, time is and you know what, Tamian, it could also be a safe, and both of these are going to work. If you think of the Great Mother, Goddess, and if you connect her to Binah, to the third Sephira, if you think of, because Binah is the great sea of the divine feminine, I know that's not the path of this card or anything, but this is a powerful divine feminine energy that is ruled by Saturn. Why is Binah, the great mother sea, ruled by Binah? Because she is, she understands the discipline that is required for enlightenment, the discipline that is required for your soul's journey. It is a metaphor, right, for the transition from the uterus to this world through the great sea. So that restriction could be in the restriction of time, or it could also be reflected in the idea of a safe. And questions about, when are you ready to open the safe? What is the safe protecting or safeguarding? And before I saw that comment, what I was thinking about, and I hadn't seen before, was I thought, is this a sewing table? And I just felt an energy of a sewing table, something very feminine. And let's look at the Justice card, which is also it's a very feminine card. And I guess you can compare and contrast these as the Justice is so light and floral and feminine. There's more darkness in the High Priestess card. And the legs are different. And so what I was picking up with the sewing table was, I don't know what it was. It was, and it's funny, I don't see sewing as any sort of a frivolous activity. I see it as it requires a lot of endurance, good sight, great sight, as a matter of fact. I blame sewing for why I wear reading glasses now. Can I say this? Just let these cards tell the story allow them to tell the story that you are ready to hear. And imagine the estate in the evening at night is not very well lit, and you're walking around with a candle. What do you see tonight that you didn't see last night? Now, the other, I think, really important thing about this deck is there's a lot of mirrors. Now, mirrors could be actual mirrors, which I'll look at one other one tonight, the one here in Justice. There's we also have reflections in ponds, as well as glass windows. And sometimes they're shattered, and sometimes they're clear, and sometimes they are, we'll call them translucent. So when glass is old, it's slightly eroded and it's not clear, so we don't see through clearly. The reflection may also not be entirely clear. Mirrors are very powerful connections to the number 2. Yes. Let me read Perry's comment. Being present and untouched by the concept of time, safety, and outer energies in our midst, living in the moment-to-moment adventure of the miraculous, unknown, and unimaginable, and allowing that unknown to stir a spark of energy and curiosity rather than fear. Now, looking into the mirrors, especially at night with candlelight, we have the power to also see past lives. This is a very, I don't know if you've ever done this sort of a practice. You go into a little bit of a trance state with candlelight and you look into the mirror. Often, when I have done this kind of practice, guided with teachers or on my own, it's like faces flash before your eyes and you can see versions of yourself. Mirrors reflect the most unexpected of things. And in our mundane life, getting ready in the morning, that sort of thing, we tend to focus on the details that don't matter so much. But mirrors also have more power. There's a lot of other mirror work. If you've done any magic or any sort of witchcraft practices, things like that, mirrors can bring forth a lot of energy. So why am I talking about mirrors and high priestess and justice? You wouldn't say it normally as a 2 card. It's about reflection. And so justice, the idea of justice, the idea of karmic law is one, that that would make sense in that they also can act as portals. So they act as portals from other times to the present. And so I understand that fear. They also can illuminate. They also illuminate what we might not necessarily see, and you can read that at whatever level. And remember, they also illuminate it in reverse image. So as you see it is not as others see you. The rights and the lefts are reversed. It's really something. So justice is about this reaction and response, action and response. The idea of reset and karmic law and this constant negotiation of pluses and minuses that help us to always be in this mode of adjustment, navigating our ways through. And remember, Tamian, we also see this idea, like you think of the Waite Smith death card, where we see the towers of the moon towers that are in that card. The moon also deeply reflecting this sort of conversation. And this deck very cleverly also has a mirror in the moon card. So what I would suggest is making a list of words, reassessment, reflection, review. I'm sure you can think of others. And perhaps now, is there any way with, we are entering into Capricorn. I mean, this would be really powerful to do this in Libra season, this kind of work. We're moving into Capricorn season, which has a different sort of energy, but we do have one other kind of beautiful synchronicity here, and that has to do with the energy of the solstice, which I'll address in a moment. But as you wander through the Tyldwick, look at and pay attention to the reflections. The glasses. Notice their level of translucency. When you go out into the garden, look at how clear the pond is. Yes. Okay. So we could also, I did there within the hallways and the alcoves in the Tyldwick, we also have, um, I'm just thinking of caves as portals, alcoves as portals, almost like the back of, I'm trying to think of the name of the pub in London, in Harry Potter, the pub that they go into, the Leaky Cauldron. So in this story, they go through the Leaky Cauldron. There's a bit of a, maybe a back patio, and it is in that, it's almost like a cave, that is where the access to another world is, into Diagon Alley. And if you have been into, so some of you have been to India or know something about the, let's use the Jesus cave, for example, in Rishikesh. I know people that have been there. I haven't been to there. I've never been to Rishikesh in my visits to India, believe it or not. And you can go into this particular cave or caves like it. There are lots of caves where enlightened beings have meditated in northern India. And the experience one can have in their imprint, do you know what that means? So it's like you pick up on the imprint of the enlightened being that was there at one time, which transports you into your own journey and your own healing experience. Yeah, I like that as well too. And maybe that's something really powerful about walking around with candlelight, that also helps to transport. Now, one of the examples of cloudy mirrors, and you can think about how this might apply, this would actually be really interesting as a magician card. But there's this level of kind of smoke and mirrors in the Fool card. There's definitely a mirror there. It's clouded. And I wonder whose reflection that is. Why would things not be abundantly clear in the glass of the Fool card? Imagine the Fool as a player behind the looking glass. Use your imagination. Maybe reread the first chapter of Lewis Carroll's Through the Looking Glass. That experience, that transition that Alice has as she goes through the glass. It's a really powerful little bit. What is behind the mirror? And why is the Fool not completely revealing himself? And also, if you look at the pattern on the wall, it very much matches the idea of the jester and the Fool and the harlequin pattern that is often seen in a Fool card. But there's something about that. I just feel that the smoke and mirrors in the Fool card. So this could also represent, the cliff. We don't know what we're diving into. So my invitation today is to look, oh gosh, here's another one. So this one has broken glass over the painting. So that's an example of another one that you might want to have a look at. Okay. I'm going to put the minor. Oh, yes. This is an amazing one. My idea with this tarot is to pay attention to the outdoors, the indoors, the moodiness, the mirrors, the smoke and mirrors, the things we can and cannot see, the reflections. And know that this may shift depending on the light you are looking at the card, because this particular deck is, can I say shrouded? Shrouded in mystery. The minor twos, let's put a couple of them on the table here. Two of fire, two of water. Once you have your list of words, and you might want to put a favorite Wade Smith inspired deck or something, beside the cards. Why is reflection so important in these cards? That's one question. What is one part showing? What is one half highlighting? Right? They're halves because they're together, they're a whole. When I look at the flowers, the dried flowers and the two of staves, I'm thinking about what, and again, I'm not sure if it's Joe or Neil, the words in the guidebook. I'm thinking it's Joe. About him saying that the obelisks in the High Priestess card are different sizes. And this is me thinking, okay, the feminine is, and maybe not, I was going to say the feminine is slightly shorter, the masculine is slightly taller. But what if you had a Amazon, so a solar feminine Amazon figure and a lunar masculine figure, and so they were what would be traditionally opposite sizes or shapes. These flowers are at different stages of life. They're both still standing tall. I feel like the one in the background has released its spores. What are they inviting you to reflect on? And also there's something, I'll be aware of the openings that are being created here, the possibilities that are being created in these cards. Because in the two of staves, there's a lot of opening to the left side. It's a blank canvas. Anything is possible. And in the two of cups, the pathway is not entirely clear. It feels a bit like a maze, like the navigation of emotions. But it's interesting that it's such a formal garden for the two of cups. It's almost like we're entering into a, like it's a formal introduction. Look as well, too, at the reflection of the formal garden versus the wild nature that is beyond the wall of the Tyldwick estate. What is within the wall is manicured. And what is beyond the wall is the wild she. It does. Yeah, I get that. Reminds me of courtship walks in Victorian films or television shows. And the card on the left reminds me a bit of like something you would see in a, it feels like a bit of I don't like being stereotypical, but a spicy, fiery relationship where it feels very passionate, where there's a more reserve in the card on the right. A fear of sexuality almost. For those of you that did the journey through the Marielle, pull out the Marielle Two of Cups and the Marielle Two of Wands and have a look at that, because this is a really interesting comparison. Because when you are looking, when people ask if you're reading for others and you're looking at relationship, there's some definite boundaries and structure here that I would want to ask, why the formality, why the structure, what is that setting up for you? Whereas the Two of Fire feels like anything could happen. Like if you're looking at it in terms of sexuality, we do have round and pointed. Also in the flower card on the left, it almost looks like right, the flower on the back has let go. The one in the front is closed. Hasn't opened. The spores have released. Spores are the seeds have released. What is it reflecting? What do you see in that wall? What do you see? What are the possibilities? There are so many possibilities in the twos. If you think about it astrologically, the twos are the first decan of the cardinal signs. The twos open the new season. They are the season opener. They are the first party. So what kind of a season opener is this? And we can contrast that with the other two twos. But before I do that, having let's just look at the other two twos. And you can work with the theme of open and close as well too here, because that really does come into play, especially in the Two of Swords. I see a wooden floor. I imagine this cage, this bird cage, is in an open room. The window may or may not be open in the room. There is a perception of being free. There is a perception of being on the outside, and yet the cage is most definitely indoors. So the cage represents a layer of restriction, as does the room. And if you go back to the statue of Nefertiti and asking yourself, well, is she standing on time or is she standing on a safe? What is your relationship with limitations? Because limitations are tested in the twos. How far can you go? How far can you push a relationship? How much can you receive? This is about the give and the take, the balance. What is it going to take to find your way to navigate through this? Oh, in an attic. Yeah, it's a pretty tidy attic. Yeah, I get that. Light and shadow, formal and wild, open and closed, round and, yeah, yin and yang. So these are just lots and lots of questions here. Each card, go back. So the first episode, I pulled out all of the outdoor cards, or perhaps the outdoor cards that give us a sense of fresh air, breath. You know what an old house feels like. Sometimes they're really cold. Sometimes they have a particular smell to them. I think we can imagine. I think that all of these cards, there's a lot of sensorial experiences we can bring into each one of these cards. Yeah, musty. Mm-hmm. Now the Two of Pentacles. Is it called coins in this coin? I think it's called coins in this deck. This is the card of now. So I know we're still in. We haven't quite shifted energy. So today is the 20th. So tomorrow is Capricorn season. I'm not sure exactly what the timing is for all of that. But as we move into Capricorn, the zodiacal correspondences, we shift into the Two of Pentacles. And you know what a traditional Marseille Two of Pentacles looks like with the energy, the Ouroboros moving around the two coins. This is the card of change. This is the card of change of seasons. This is where we shift from the light is shifting, the energy of light. And there's something kind of mechanical in this card as well too. And I know sometimes we do see a pulley system, levers. We get the idea of fulcrums and the movement of physical objects. And there's something here that feels like I want to make sure everything is operating well. I want to be aware of the levers and weights and the details of how all this is going. And I know this is a used and functional part of the house because that plant is very much alive and that plant is thriving. At least it looks that way to me. The way I'm looking at it right now in the dark, I'm imagining something has been set up for a self-watering system. And perhaps on the other side of this, going up this side and up here, there is another plant over here. Maybe we're only looking at half of the wall, half of the pulley system. So here's a question. What happens when we don't see the whole picture? This is you can do this in the twos, any of the twos, in any tarot. Cover up one of the things. How does your impression change? What if you cover up one eye and you look at it with your good eye or your bad eye? Right? Twos are about perception. And we see and we are irritated by what we need to move through. All of these cards teach us about relationship and balance, perceptions of kinds. And I really like the Thoth keyword adjustment. There's just something about the awareness of adjustment and how we have the ability to co-navigate our lives with spirit by free will and making little adjustments along the way. If we adjust the little wheel, this being the little wheel card, I think one of the things about this card is that it's an invitation to make a small adjustment. Be mindful that you have the power to make adjustments. When the wheel, the 10, the wheel of fortune comes around, we don't really have any control. It's changing. But here, It's more mechanical. We can do something about it. It's more three-dimensional, more mundane. We can get out some tools and fix it. So what is the adjustment that could be made in any of these twos? What would you adjust if you were walking through any of these scenes? And how do these scenes adjust your perspective? I can imagine somebody being quite fearful that the bird is out of the cage. Somebody freaking out because they're afraid of birds. Different people have different reactions to things. It's really something. I went through quite detailed guidance when I was learning to guide meditation about the kind of things that that could be brought into a guided meditation. And I remember one time the teacher saying, well, usually the visualization of a red rose is fairly safe. And after we'd had this long discussion, I explained to the Swamiji how red roses, were not generally a positive image for me. And not because of the thorns, but I had other associations. And I think we need to remember that in any of these reflection cards, they can go in any direction. So whatever you are seeing is what you need to see. And don't second guess yourself here. No, thank you. Thank you, Perry. All right. So I'm going to leave you with that for today. And I'll be back with the 4th episode in 2 weeks' time. Okay, so have fun with your cards and play with them in different lighting. And if you do have a looking glass, and view them upside down, look at them in different ways. Okay, it's amazing place to wander. Take good care of yourselves, and I'll see you soon. Namaste.